Assalamu alaikum. In this section of the course, we're going to be dealing with World War II, and this is chapter 30 from your textbook. And here are some of the topics we will be covering. Number one, again, the road to war, and mainly World War II. The other information about domestic fronts and preparations for peace, we will deal with that, but not as in depth as the other two. Now, just think back on what we said about World War One. And when this war occurred, it was supposed to be the war to end all wars. But in fact, because of some of the injustices and some of the what the Germans especially saw as inequities in at the end of the war, um, amazingly another even bigger war occurred 20 years later. Let's keep in mind that between the two wars, between World War One and World War Two, there were quite a few experiments, as we mentioned before, what we might call political experiments. We saw the rise the rise of Mussolini, fascism. We saw the rise of the Nazis in Germany, and we even saw the experiment, what was considered the Soviet experiment. And most of this was due to the nationalistic and militaristic nature of the people who were involved in these movements. Um, Now, here are some questions for us to consider. One is, what is the relationship between World War One and World War Two? And the question of isolationism of the United States. Why was the United States considered isolationist? In other words, why was the United States seen as as a nation that did not want to get involved immediately in World War II? And what were the truly global consequences of World War II? Um, Another question to consider is, what lessons did we learn from the experiences of World War I and World War II, especially when we think about today the number of wars that are taking place. Uh, just to mention a few, what we see happening in what we saw happen in Iraq and Afghanistan, and not to mention the ongoing conflict in Palestine. Again, war. As you can see here, we're speaking about events that took place between 1933 and 1939.